My name is over there. Since we have only 15 minutes, I'd like to start and skip as much an introduction as possible. I've been working on Everest project totaling over 500 people at times, and I've been Scrum Master for 4 different teams. And the thing I've picked up as an inspiration for my talk is a very well-known Tim Ferriss's book called The 4-Hour Workweek. This is a book how you can only work 4 hours per week and spend all the time at the beautiful island there on the cover. And that wasn't what got me thinking about my Scrum Master job. That was some other quote I've heard. That was that best Scrum Master is invisible, that the best Scrum Master is really not needed by his teams. And that got me thinking, what else, what other job is there that people are not needed? And they say the network administrators are that kind of a job. The best network administrators set up a network perfectly, fail-safe, and if there are no changes to the network, he doesn't even need to show to work. Well, maybe we can do the same thing as a Scrum Master. Or maybe not, because we are working with people and people are unpredictable. But still, despite having 4 teams on a very large Scrum project, I managed to, work more or less 4 hours per week. And I'm pretty sure my superiors are not present here in this room, so it's good. But still, I'm spending only 4 hours with my teams. And I would like to tell you how to do that, because I noticed that most of the Scrum Masters are overwhelmed with work. They work far too much, they run errands, they run meetings, they have really many things to do, and I don't. So how I did it. I had 4 teams, and having 4 teams, I was essentially owning a little bit of a Scrum laboratory where I can experiment on people and find out how I can make them more self-organized and how I can make myself doing less things. In reality, it was more of a, like in this book, and if you haven't read The Deadline by Tom DeMarco, it's a marvelous book about project management. It's a novel. And the main character over there, Mr. Tompkins, finds himself in charge of developing 6 different products. The thing is, he's given unlimited resources. And with those unlimited resources, he organizes 18 different teams doing exactly the same thing. And he tries to find out what's the best way to manage the people. So they are essentially competing. My situation was a little bit different. I had 4 teams. They were doing very similar work, but using the same product backlog, but not the same work. And I could tweak this and that and see how they react and see what can I expect in terms of self-organizing teams. And I would like to share with you some thoughts from that experiment, some tools and techniques I used, and tuning into the theme of our conference, by example, give you some examples how you can work less as a Scrum Master. The first thing I noticed, and again, I hope my superiors are not present in this room, is being late. Being late is awesome, especially when you think about all the meetings you're running. Because being late and for a meeting, especially for the daily Scrum, which are usually held in the morning, turns out that most of the meetings, especially when you gather some people in one place for a very specific purpose, and this is important, they need to know what the purpose of the meeting is, they usually start by themselves, and if you are not there to bother them, they usually finish much quicker than you would be present and trying to run that particular event. I'm not saying you need to be late for work. I need to only say you need to observe from a distance if the meeting is taking place, like it's a Scrum Master job. You make sure the meeting takes place, make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing on that meeting, but you don't hamper with the self-organization. Well, that thing can be taken even further because, like I said, Everest is a big project. We have release planning meetings that last sometimes even 2 days. We have very different things going on, like maintenance, like testing for a different version, like development. Yeah, and I understand that it sounds a little bit like a Scrum bot. However, that was the realities we were living in. So, by taking the example of being late even further, you can not be present. For example, the first time I was on vacation while there was a 2 days long release planning, I was surprised that my teams did it marvelously without me even being there. When I was there, they were always trying to ask me questions, to get me to do some work, to work with them. When I was not there, they become more self-organized. just by the same thing of me not being there. And this is also very good if you want to get rid of running all the sprint retrospectives or the sprint planning meetings, which are usually held on Mondays and Fridays. Just extend your weekend, go and travel somewhere, and just observe how your teams are already good without you. The biggest thing that got me really into that mindset was having as many teams as possible. That gave me hundreds of excuses to all my teams that I don't have time specifically for them. I could always say I'm doing something for the other team, and if the other team asks me, I'm saying I'm doing it for the other team, so essentially I can do whatever I want. Again, don't tell my superiors. I noticed they're over there. I'm busted. But yeah, I got from 2 to 3 to 4 teams over the course of 2 years. The thing I did, I always worked with one team, and I worked with one team that I thought need the most work. That means they either had a very bad sprint or they had some internal problems, and I visited all their events like Scrum retrospectives or planning meetings. And the thing is, the team noticed that. They noticed that when I'm present, that means something's wrong with them. And if they noticed that they had only one thing on their mind, they wanted to get rid of me out of those meetings, because that meant, okay, we are the worst team of the sprint out of those 4. And they did get rid of me from those meetings by doing better. They just started to work with themselves. They started to notice all the problems they had, and they started to run all these things, the meetings, without me, so they won't need me to coach them, to mentor them, to guide them. They will become really self-organized teams. And in time, all 4 teams get rid of me of their cyclic events. And that was a good thing, because they were, at first self-organized, and they were happy that they are performing very well. And we can take that even further to all Scrum events, to all cyclic events. There is one very useful tool in your tool bag, and it's delegation. You can ask one eager person from your team, from every team, and there's always at least one eager team in each Scrum team, the guy or girl who really wants to do something, likes Agile and that stuff, and just tell them to run this particular meeting. Just get on with it, and then after you've done, pass the responsibility to another person. And by doing that, you're just making sure that this guy or girl only runs it once, and then it starts to move around the team. And then when the team tries to get back to you with the responsibility, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, this month I'm doing it for the other team," because we are having many different teams. And you're essentially just getting rid of all the cyclic events, whether it's a Scrum event or it's, I don't know, bug events, whatever things are run in your company. And you can take that example even further. Whenever you're being asked to do anything by your teams, you have to always ask yourself, are they trying to use me? Can they do them by themselves? Or maybe they can't. Maybe they don't know why. And that's the job of the Scrum Master, to teach the teams to do things they're supposed to be doing. And by doing that, it can range from as mundane tasks as telling them where are the documents located, instead of sending them as an attachment. Just tell them once, and then next time they will find them by themselves. If they, for example, are unable to use some piece of software you expect them to use, you can always organize a meeting, teach them, and then you won't even be bothered by any member of the team ask for that software. I'm not saying that you just have to be lazy. No, it's a lot of work to teach other people, but you don't have to do every single thing. I've noticed Scrum Masters that do crazy things. They bring reams of paper for the printer if it ends. They bring coffee if they run out of coffee. They organize meetings. They look for rooms. They schedule meetings they aren't even part of. That's not the job of a Scrum Master. That's not what I've read in all the books, and that's certainly not what I've experienced. Well, there is a big warning that comes with employing all those techniques. We all know the 4 stages of team forming. There's forming, storming, norming, and performing. You need to have performing teams to do any of that. Trying to employ any of those tools or techniques on new team or on teams where something changed will result in a disaster. I can guarantee you that. The other and I think even more important thing is the emotional investment. And I would like to give an example outside of Scrum example that everyone can relate to. Let's imagine you've met a girl or a boy or at a bus stop or a bar, you exchange numbers, and then you text him or her, and you got no reply, and just, okay, at least I tried. Like, there's no emotional investment in that situation. But let's take a different turn. Well, you text him or her, you engage in a chat, then you meet, then you have a coffee or a drink, then you text someone, and you don't get a reply. Well, now you want to know what happened. Now you do everything you can to, well, was it something I did wrong? What something happens? You're emotionally invested. And that's what happened to my teams when I was back to Scrum. That's what happened to my teams when I tried to make them review the burn down charts. Back a few months ago, we still had 3 weeks-long sprints. Burn down charts were very essential for noticing if we're going to finish the sprint on time. They didn't want to do any of that. So I started to print the burn down charts and pin them to the Kanban boards where they were having the daily scrums. And after a few sprints, I've noticed they started to review them. They started to make a little marks. They started to write vulgar words sometimes on them, but still they were noticing them. So then I asked a guy from each and every team to print them for me. Just print them for one sprint, then pass the responsibility to another guy, and so on and so on. And they continue to do that. And after a few sprints, I pitched the topic of burn down charts on sprint retrospective. 3 out of 4 teams said they are very important for them to have those burn down charts reviews on the daily Scrum because they know whether they're going to finish on time or not. And just because they've been doing it for a few sprints, they've become emotionally invested in that technique. Well, summing this up, because we're running out of time, there are 3 simple steps to get any team to use any tool or technique you want them. At first, you have to show the team how and why to do it, and those are 2 important parts. How? Because without it, they won't be able to. Why? Because if they don't know how it's going to help them, they won't use that particular tool or technique. So you have to really focus on selling the advantages of anything you want them to start doing. Well, the second important thing is that you have to let them experiment with it. You have to you can't be holding their hand forever. So you're letting them fail. And when they fail, and if they're smart people, and I believe we are employing only smart people, they will learn that that particular tool or technique was in fact very useful. And they start to do it again, they start to use it again. And then you only have to fade away. Your job as a Scrum Master isn't to be doing everything for them, like I said. Your job is to coach, guide, mentor, and that's what you do. If they run into some obstacles, you have to remove the impediments, but you have to still let them do and let them self-organize. And you may ask, well, okay, what's next? I'm working with my teams only for hours. I've moved all the responsibilities to them because the big warning, another one is that you have to run all those 3 steps for every single thing you want them to do. Be it, I don't know, sprint retrospective, Kanban board, to-dos, no estimates, stuff like that. Every single team has to go through each of these 3 steps. So what's next? And I can see the signs, we only have 40 seconds. Like I said in the very beginning, we are Scrum Masters, we're working with people. People are unpredictable, there is always something to do. There's always change in the environment, in the teams, in the requirements. There is always work with the product owner, and more important, even if your team is already super agile, I very highly doubt that your company is. We have all read the Scrum Guide. We know what the responsibilities of the Scrum Master are, but now working 4 hours with your teams, you have 36 hours to do all the fun stuff. And that's the goal of becoming 4-hour Scrum Master. Thank you.